Hello everyone once again, and welcome to the Smart City Angel Investor Workshop. While we wait for other people to join in, we would like to do a quick poll to see where you're joining in from, where you're calling in from today. So a quick poll will appear on your screen now. Just fill it in to see what region you're calling in from. Me personally, I'm calling in from Lagos, Nigeria. So that's in West Africa. Kindly fill in where you're calling in from today. Thank you. Okay, so I can see that we have a lot of people calling in from Eastern and Southern Africa on the call here today. We can see Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, and the diaspora. We don't have anyone in yet from Northern Africa, but before the end of the call, I'm sure we'll have some people join us. So let's just give them additional 2 more minutes for additional participants to join, then we kick off finally. Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you for waiting with us. I would now like to introduce Fadila Chumba. So Fadila is the Secretary General for the African Business Angel Network. And she'll be leading us through the overview session of the workshop. Fadila, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And for this session, I will be walking you through an overview of the smart cities on the continent. Well, to start with, I would like to first touch on the global perspective and global view on smart cities. And we have been able to note that smart cities are zoned within a territory where technology and connectivity play a central part in infrastructure. And one of the important carrier of innovation ideas for smart cities across the globe are startups. And the projection global revenue of startup active in the smart cities utility technology sector is forecasted to reach a little bit over $110 billion in 2025. And by 2025, the smart city utility segment is projected to represent the highest share of startup revenue in the smart city market. As you can see on your right, you have a graph that pretty much highlights the various segments of smart cities on the globe. Now I would like to touch a little bit on what that means for Africa. What Africa's Smart City Initiative range from tech hub like Ghana, Hope City, to residential and business district like Johannesburg, Waterfall City, Eco Atlantic in Nigeria, and Addis Ababa's Africa First Smart Parking System. And 20 African countries have joined a pact started by Rwanda called the Smart Africa Alliance to make technology a part of our national development plan. And the African Union has also made smart city adoption one of the tenets of its 2063 development plan. And you will see on the map a clear idea of where a smart cities initiative are going within the African continent. And to continue, we'll see that African startups are pretty much spearheading the harness of the power of technology across the continent. And we also have seen a partnership between the Rwandese Ministry of ICT and Innovation and GIZ to launch a six-month Smart City Innovation Program designed to help African startups scale innovative products. And about 31 African startups were selected for this program, which we have checked, they're doing quite well. We're talking about startups like InstaDeep from Tunisia and SharpSharp from Nigeria that have been recognized as one of the best innovators in the African within the smart cities kind of thematic. And of course, when we talk about, we keep on reemphasizing the fact that when we talk about smart city, we're really talking about renewable energy. We're talking about the Internet of Things. We're talking about utilities. We're talking about waste management. We're talking about transport that are pretty much elaborated in a more efficient and effective way for people living on the continent. As far as in-country examples are concerned, we are looking into Kenya and looking at it from three different perspectives. Number one, market availability. Number two, policy. And number three, investment already that have been attracted for that country. So when we look at Kenya, for example, we can actually point the fact that Kenya is a hub for entrepreneurship and startup development in East Africa, with a growing ecosystem of innovative businesses and supportive infrastructures. And Kenya is also among the top 3 African countries for startup activities and investment, alongside South Africa and Nigeria. Nairobi has also become the center of startup ecosystem and one of the leading cities on the continent. And of course, when you look at Kenya, you see that Kenya is very well positioned to, number one, support startups that are emerging within the smart city thematic, but also providing the necessary infrastructure for these startups to actually strive. And in terms of policy, we also note that the Kenyan government has worked extremely hard to support the emergence of these startups within the smart city kind of thematic. And in Kenya alone, we have seen that the government has played a supportive role for the growth of the smart city startup ecosystem. And there has been a lot of effort to create a more business-friendly environment with initiatives such as establishing the Kenyan Investment Authority, which is tasked to promote and facilitate investment in the country, specifically those focusing on smart cities questions. The government has also launched several programs to support young entrepreneurs, including the Youth Enterprise Development Fund and the Kenyan National Innovation Agency. All of these initiatives are actually geared towards supporting these startups that are emerging within the market. And in terms of investment, we can also note that in 2022, Kenyan smart city startups were able to attract over $57 million that were raised across 26 deals. This is quite a big deal, and we're now seeing more and more countries on the continent that are also taking the lead from Kenya in terms of attracting more investment, but also supporting those startups that are focusing on making the life of its inhabitant very easy, affordable, and a lot more efficient. Now we would like to touch on one example, a smart cities startup called Eneza, initially founded in Kenya. This startup primarily operate within the edtech kind of space. And of course, he has contributed heavily in making sure that people do have access to education in a more reliable, accessible, and easy way. In terms of the startup itself, I'm kind of glad to point out that this startup has been founded by a female, and it also has a female as a CEO. And it provides an e-learning platform to primary and secondary learners. And in a sense, is a B2C SaaS business that seems to be doing extremely well. They initially raised around $660,000, and later on raised additional grant to support their operation. And since they have raised this capital, which did eventually total to about $3.6 million in 2020, they have been able to pretty much increase their platform to about 27, a little bit over 27 users, and have also been able to migrate with other platforms to keep the company a lot more efficient. And today the company operates in Kenya, but also has expanded to Ivory Coast. This is just an example of a tech company that is solving issues or providing solutions to make a city a lot more smarter. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fadila. I really loved your overview for smart cities. So now I'd like to invite Serge Ntamack. Serge is our smart city angel champion, and he's going to lead us through the masterclass session of the workshop. Serge, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey. Just to confirm that everyone, if you hear me. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here and leading you through this masterclass on smart cities and startup investment. I would like first to just start with just sharing my background and my experience as an investor. So I'm actually affiliated. I'm one of the founders of the Cameroon Angel Network. It's been operating for more than 5 years. Yeah, do you see my video now? It's taking a bit of time to load, but let me know whether you're seeing it.
Yes, I can see your video now.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeffrey. So my background, I've been actually one of the founders of the Cameroon Angel Network, and we've been operating more than 5 years now. Cameroon is one of the most active ecosystems in startups in Africa, and we have a few success stories that I'll share lately. That's one thing. The second thing that just brought me is a very, very diverse background as far as I'm concerned, because my background is I'm a lawyer, like a policy person. And I used to work for several multinationals, including Microsoft, as a policy lead. And then that's how I developed some interest in investment in startups, mostly from the policy and legal angle, actually. I'm very interested in seeing how we can break some of the legal barriers that are an impediment for startups to operate. That's how I got into investment, and I invested as an individual and as part of the Cameroon Angel Network. I've been doing this for more than close to 10 years now. So it's been quite a journey, and I'll be happy to share some of the challenges and the opportunities therein. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is the opportunity. So why invest in smart cities ventures in Africa? First of all, just back to what Fadila said about smart cities, she gave a very good overview of the smart cities and evolving in Africa. One thing is very clear is that with the growing adoption of technologies, I'm seeing it, right? And Kenya was And I guess M-Pesa was celebrated as a world-class success story when it comes to technology adoption. It's not stranger to that. So it shows that with the growth in mobile money, mobile payments, etc., in Africa, there's quite some opportunities there for interested investors. That's one thing. The second thing I wanted to talk about is also when you look at specific opportunities, within smart cities. When you look at things around mobility, a lot of African cities have commuting mobility issues because of the way they've expanded. Usually not very structured. So there's huge problems with mobility in some African countries. For instance, motorcycles have become the staple of transportation. What sort of problem that create versus the lack of, for instance, of urban strong transportation systems that are organized. When you look at health, with the growing population, there's obviously some great issues around health systems and how do you manage that. Clear opportunities about environment, waste management, etc., and very important about education. Set up that Fadila highlighted was in tech. are definitely very important, very huge opportunity there in terms of education. And supportive governments, definitely, and public sector initiatives. One thing that you notice is that a lot of the smart cities programs that have been driven in some countries in Africa, when we talk about, for instance, we look at the Kigali Innovation Center or what's going on in Kenya with the Conga Technopolis, it's usually, driven by governments or strong support from governments. So there's an intentional incentive there for investors to take some risk. And then I'll quickly talk about the two other opportunities that I see. If you are really interested in impact investment, sustainability, definitely smart cities is a play for you to consider when you look at resource management, reduce energy consumption, and way to minimize environmental impact. And also, we're talking about data. What better platform that you see where you can actually leverage, the data explosion that we're seeing in Africa, and see how internationally, use that for greater efficiency. So that's for me just a snapshot of opportunities, very compelling from our perspective in terms of why you should consider investing in smart cities. And I just wanted to highlight something there that's very important, is that when you look at the concept of smart cities, in fact, you have the smart cities framework, but then you have very specific sectors or issues around that, talk about health, etc., where you can actually, if you are interested in only one aspect of it, you can actually invest in that aspect and go deep into that without really looking at it from a holistic point of view. That's also the beauty of our smart cities. It's really like a concept that encapsulates several perspectives. And then in terms of the challenges, just very critical, by the way, because when you look at, we all see it every day, the inadequate physical infrastructures. Cities in Africa are crumbling because of the lack of governments to invest, and also the fact that they are really expanding at very, very fast, very, very fast, and it's difficult for governments, difficult for actors to adjust to that. So lack of physical infrastructure, roads, basic facilities for people to live, and then correlated to that, you have that urban chaos that we're seeing in a lot of big African cities, be it in Nigeria, be it in Kenya, be it in Cameroon. We're seeing that happening everywhere with the widespread population. And a lot, because we're talking about technology, how do you manage that with technology? There's significant investment through technology that you have to put in there. And then, of course, talking about, we're seeing the effects of climate change and disasters with flooding in a lot of these big cities, etc. A heat of wave that we're also witnessing over the last few years. And then very critical, of course, very important for me as a lawyer in the background, look at enabling of, lack of enabling or consistent, regulatory framework. But that is across the board when you talk about startups in Africa. Although we've seen some very good progress with some startup acts, but there's still very, 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 very inconsistent regulatory frameworks. And when it comes to smart cities, for instance, in mobility, in countries, for instance, I'll just give you an example in Cameroon, there's been some controversies around regulating, for instance, mobility startups or apps. Are they transportation companies or are they platforms, etc.? And governments have very, very fragmented responses to that. And then big question, what is a suitable model? What is the smart cities? What does it mean for Africa? Right? We just take what has been done, for instance, in countries that are modeling that, like Singapore, which is a very small country, etc. Or do we just translate that into what is sort of African reality, or do we just have a hard look at our reality and see how we can define very specific models for Africa and looking at our own specific environment? So those are opportunities and challenges to details over some of them, just to highlight and just showcase you some of our one of our journeys into investing into smart cities, startups, and see how that you can be actually interested in joining us in that journey. I just wanted to highlight before I get into the next slide theme, and just how it would be very good to have your participation. Really want you to be interactive. So please feel free to jump in to ask questions. It's very important that this masterclass is really very, very participative. So next for me is what, getting into the details of why do we invest in smart cities ventures in Africa. And I'll give you an example. For instance, how do you evaluate investment opportunities? That's a big question that always come up. Of course, it's good. How do you go yourself, or do you join a group, or do you have lead investors? Do you work with lead investors? I think it depends on scenarios. If it's a market that you are not really, that's very new to you, it makes sense when the opportunities arise to have a lead investor who are very knowledgeable in that area. The reality is that in smart cities, there are not many that are really been active. When you look at the concept of smart cities, you can look at some sectors. You can have healthcare, for instance. You can have mobility, and I think there are some very, very good already existing investors very active in that area. So you can look at joining as a co-lead or a member of a funding community. What we did with the Cameroon Angels Network is the fact that we were a collective help us to sort of first aggregate our knowledge, right? Because we group a different background and different expertise and experience. So we're able to aggregate our expertise and look at the opportunities from a very, very diverse perspective, I would say. That's one thing. The second thing is in terms of the capacity to invest. Being part of a collective, was obviously an advantage for us in terms of putting together the resources. And not looking only in terms of the financial investment, but also in terms of the expertise that we can bring to the table. And what are the reasons why we look into smart cities investment? And I'll give you an example. For instance, in Cameroon, where we made a very significant investment. And I'll get into the details of that investment after this. But we look at these challenges that we're seeing in the marketplace. One of the things was, okay, we're looking at, for instance, transportation is a huge problem. We wanted to do, our investment team was technology. We wanted to invest in ventures that promote technology, that use technology, that leverage technology to solve real problems, real African problems. And we saw mobility, transportation as a key problem. It's one of the problems that we're seeing in some of our cities, and we thought this would be an area where we can believe, we can really focus. And in a country like Cameroon, for instance, where you have close to 800,000 motorcycles, very unstructured environment, with a lack of safety for drivers, lack of safety for passengers, a lot of issues with government regulations, very inconsistent, and also the fact that a lot of drivers, for instance, didn't have access to ownership of their own motorbikes. It gave us an overview on the window into a very interesting opportunity, and we thought that that would be for us an opportunity to get into that space. That was basically one of our first investments as a collective. Can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah, thanks. So that was our first as a collective, and the fact, one of the facts that was so important to mention is that we work with the African Business Angel Network as part of their catalytic program, and they provided support in terms of matching funds for that investment. So it gave us additional comfort. They also have that opportunity to work with to work with other parties like ABAN that can help you to sort of scale your investment. So we went for that co-investment. I wanted to keep in mind as we're talking about this investment into smart, talking about mobility. The first one was, what did we consider as very important, in terms of to make our investment? What were some of the key things that we consider? I think the first one for us was the management, right? The management of that startup. We found the founder was from the diaspora, and actually was coming back to Cameroon, and so very strong commitment coming back to the field to really lead his venture. So that was a strong signal in terms of investment. Readiness. The second thing was very diverse, funding team. From several backgrounds and several geographies, like India, Cameroon, and a few other countries. So it gave us additional comfort that technologically and also from a diversity point of view, this was a strong team to consider. We also look at things around the business itself. And one of the things that was very important for us was, in fact, that business was potentially self-sustainable, right? In the way that it had the potential, to be, to provide a good return on investment right from day one, without looking at the typical, funding stages. So the business was self-sustainable from the beginning. A third thing to also notice, in terms of our assessment of the investability of that of startup in Cameroon, was in terms of smart cities. It was the fact that we look at the technology, of course, and the fact that it was very clear from the beginning, from them, that they wanted to use a technology that is really very adaptable, very flexible, and really based on the needs in the marketplace. And it was not something that will be just sort of imported and translated in locally. So they went for for an app, a platform that was built internally, taking into account some of the realities of the market. So that was also an additional incentive for us to invest. Something else also that we did consider was the fact that there was a strong upside in terms of scalability, because motorcycle business is a business that is arguably now very widely prevalent in a lot of countries in Africa, and we see that actually most of the times in countries that have very urban expansion issues, so Nigeria, Cameroon, DRC, etc. So for us, the fact that this was a very scalable business also was a very important factor to consider. And another point was potentially very, very important is sustainability. We're talking about a business that is critical in terms of greenhouse emissions. It's a business that has potential, for instance, to help address climate change issues, because motorcycles consume a lot of fuel. So there was an upside in terms of electrical vehicles, for instance. And one thing I wanted to mention also was that this startup, for instance, when they started, they actually started as one of the delivery suppliers for Jumia, which is always a ubiquitous e-commerce platform. So they already had and they did pivot from that model, which was also a good indication of their capabilities in terms of being able to adapt to the market. Can we please move to the slide? And I just wanted to give you a bit of details about that investment and the startups. That case study. Let me just look at the case study. Yeah, the name of the startup is B Mobility. The business at the core was providing solutions for motorcycles, basically, through a platform model. Today, they're building a credit risk assessment solution. They also are providing loans to motorcycles drivers. And one of the things that was is very critical for that startup is it's a combination of a B2B model and a B2C model as well as a platform. So very ubiquitous in terms of what they can cover. And again, as I said it earlier, this is a very, very scalable model for them. Two other things that I wanted to add, and please feel free to. I would like to hear from the investors in the call and other stakeholders in terms of their experience and whether they will be interested in investing in this type of startups that is into the smart cities field. I just wanted a couple of things that I wanted to add here. The first one was support, and I saw it earlier in my previous slide. Support from the government. Governments have an incentive, of course, to control in Africa, motorbikes, motorcycle drivers, for instance, in Cameroon, they don't have most. So there was an additional incentive from the government to really support because they really wanted to see some structure in that sector. They were keen to hear from investors and even from other stakeholders how you can regulate that sector. So there was an active, proactive listening presented from the government. So there was an additional incentive for us to go there. So this slide summarizes, I'll say, the three core interests for us to just in terms of B as a business. Mobility, digital lending platform, so sort of a fintech for lending for motorcycle drivers, a marketplace, so that platform role is very ubiquitous and can help plug and play all sort of stakeholders. So just imagine a platform where you can have drivers, you can have banking service providers, etc., all coming together, for providers, etc., insurance providers all coming together. And again, around a digital app that has that scalability potential. And then the data, back to my point earlier on how do you use the data, and the fact it's you can use it to sort of start building a profile of users and potentially, upside, commercial upside, use it for commercial upsides in terms of their behaviors, etc. So that is, so this is just a snapshot of the app. It's a lending software app that is used for the drivers, even for some of the partners who provide services through the platform, and even e-payment providers that are plugging into that app. Mobility is, to me and other investors, is really one of the very, very critical sectors when you talk about smart cities in Africa, because it's an obvious one, and it has a very really potential to change the landscape when you look visually at African cities. These are some of the data from this traction, the number of motorcycles financed over the last 3 years, loan unlocked. On loans, I just wanted to mention here that the number of partnerships that they've been able to sign with financial institutions is mind-boggling. Again, using the platform approach. So the financial institution just plug into internet and just provide the funding to using the platform, using the credit scoring, and also using some of the data that they are actually being collecting, and the motorcycle, for those who've been interested or involved into the motorcycle business, there's a lot of issues with fraud, a lot of issues with debt, and this startup B has been able to manage that, to limit the damage from repayments, loan repayments, and lost motorcycles or assets. So, just to summarize, asset management, fintech, credit scoring. So there's 3-in-1 startups that we're so happy to have been partnering with right from the beginning, and see them growth over the last 2 to 3 years. I just wanted to make sure that I'm not speaking to myself. And then, is there any question at this stage from the audience about why we invested in this? Whether you've been very interested in investing as well, and some of the issues around our journey investing into this startup.
Yes, Serge, thank you so much for your session. I have a question personally.
Yeah.
So how do you think the current rise of AI as a solution will affect smart city and smart city startups precisely? Do you think it will help catalyze their growth, and by how fast do you think it will be?
I think that's a good question. We're talking about AI. It's very hot these days. I think that's the next stage, basically, for as far as I see it, because AI will definitely be very key in terms of things I was saying, in terms of how do you manage the data, how do you make the data to talk, for instance, and build automatic predictive models that can help you to basically, first of all, what I see is time to market. Limit your time to market in the sense that you will be able to more accurately and more quickly have, or being able to interpret. Because one of the issues that startup, especially in mobility and for instance, mobility and smart cities have, as one thing. The second thing I think is when you're plugging with other stakeholders and partners. For instance, if you're adopting a platform model, and you have to, of course, to plug, for instance, in healthcare, you have to plug with insurance sector, etc. AI help you to build a lot of these models very quickly, and you make it automatic, and can help you to save cost, etc. So for me, AI is an accelerator in this area. And provided, and if we're able to get governments to adopt AI regulations that are promoting investments and even ventures in smart cities and AI, I think you have a nexus there that can help us to basically, I would say, instead of going through the cumbersome, I would say, slow development stages that we've experienced so far, we can leapfrog through AI with the right universities that we can leap through AI, and basically what I would say is build sort of like pockets of smart cities, because back to what I said about African realities is that not sure that we can have like a Singapore type of smart cities, right? In Africa, maybe Rwanda is proving us wrong. Maybe Rwanda can achieve it, but not many other countries can do that because of the size, because of the chaos, because of a lot of factors. But we can have pockets, right, niches of smart cities, and that's where AI really can help you really plug in and just being able to be more efficient, etc. Things around waste management are typical areas that consume a lot of data, and AI can help automate that. That is very automated. I'll say this is an area that can be very, very easily automated as well using AI models.
Thank you so much.
One of the things that before just one aspect of that, Jeffrey, just to be comprehensive on your own answer, is we all know that there are issues with AI, potentially ethical issues, etc. So we have to be mindful of that as well. I know that some investors, for instance, are very, very conscious of potential pitfalls. So we need to be conscious of that because massive amount of data through AI, etc., can create issues with, privacy, etc. So we need to be mindful of that. But I think for me, all in one is it's a good accelerator.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Serge. Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions from members of the room? Because we'll quickly have to go to the venture showcase because of time, but we can take one or two questions. If anyone has any questions, just kindly raise up your hand and you'll be invited to the floor to speak. Thank you. Okay, while we wait questions from members of the room, I will now invite Amimo from the ABAN team, who will lead us through the venture showcase. Serge, thank you so much. Any other questions? I think stick around for the venture showcase. You might see one or two companies you might invest in. Who knows?
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey.
But thank you so much for your time.
But I'm a little bit worried about not getting any question. Either it's been too good or it's been too bad.
It's been very good from my perspective. I really enjoyed the session, and I think everyone else as well.
Thank you.
So, Amimo, over to you. There are comments on the chat, Serge. There's comments. People enjoyed your session. I'm sure they did.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey, for the introduction. And also, I'd like to thank Serge for the insightful session. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the second session, part of the session, which is the Venture Showcase, where we'll have 3 selected startups to pitch for the Angels present today. So the first startup will be Yugo Limited, followed by Ohospital Cloud Limited, and then Quick Robotics. So it's very important to note that during this Venture Showcase, each startup will be allocated 7 minutes to pitch for the Angels present. And then the remaining 7 minutes will be used for the Angels present to ask questions. And kindly, you're requested to observe time during this session so that also we allow the Angels to ask their questions and then also to answer them satisfactorily. So the first one is Yugo Limited, read by Kaushik Rathod. Welcome, Kaushik.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you. We
Yes.
can hear you.
I
Hi.
think I can hear you.
Yes, hi.
Yes,
I am
we can hear
actually Ivani Rathod. Kaushik is unfortunately not available today, so I'll be filling in for him.
Sure, no problem. That's great.
So, thank you. Thank you for giving us this platform. We are very happy to be here. Yugo is a mobility app. So we did not invent the wheel, but in Mauritius, when we started in 2017, the taxi system in Mauritius was very archaic. So if you needed a taxi, you had to walk to the taxi stand, negotiate a fare. Most of the time, you don't know how much you have to pay. So there was a real problem in terms of moving around using taxis efficiently. So there was a lack of digital connectivity. So what we, after a lot of R&D, we came up with the most part of the world. So it was important for us, however, to create an app which was adapted to Mauritius. So we created the app from scratch, in the sense it is a native app, and we had to adapt it to the local rules and regulation in terms of transport system, especially taxis. So today somebody can book a taxi through the app, get a registered taxi, a reliable registered taxi with a transparent fare system and multiple payment method, including cashless. If we can move to the next slide, please. So like I was saying, we did spend a lot of time to make sure that the app adapt to the local market, because it was relatively new for users in Mauritius and the taxi drivers themselves. So apart from it being fully digital, we had to ensure that users could book an immediate trip and also advanced booking. We had to integrate a SOS call, not that the taxis here are not safe, it's just that it kind of give an assurance to the users and the taxis as well. Cashless payment was very important, obviously, because most of the clients had to pay cash and always had to have change. And also we realized that taxi drivers having money in their taxis might also attract some not very nice people. So cashless payment made sure that taxis did not have to drive around with their earnings in their car. We have an in-app chat and in-app call, especially to keep the privacy of the users, so they don't need to share their phone number. That was very important. And the two-way rating system allows us to keep the network safe for both users and drivers. So we monitor this regularly. Those who have a bad rating, we call them and try to find out why the rating was low, and accordingly, we take action on that. Apart from the taxis, Yugo also allows users to book car rentals. They can search, compare, book, and pay for their rental with an instant confirmation in the app. And the latest feature we added, since we have a lot of tourists who use our app to move around, we have integrated a feature called Places of Interest, allowing them to discover Mauritius through the app and also instantly book a taxi through there. Next slide, please. So this is quickly our journey. We did a lot of R&D in 2017 when we actually came back to Mauritius, because it was very surprising that the taxi app did not exist at that time in Mauritius. So after a lot of development and we launched in 2018. In 2021, we joined an incubator in Mauritius called La Plage Factory, and we raised funding for marketing brand awareness. And then we had a follow-up investment in 2022, and we were very happy that we were qualified for the catalytic ABAN matching grant, which allowed us to continue to do upgrades on the app, but also to employ new staff to help us in the company. And this year we are looking at further growth and to scale up. So the traction, of course, we are very happy that we survived COVID. It was a struggle, but we managed to do it. You can see that this chart shows you the number of taxi bookings that we completed per year. So it was very, very low, slow for the first couple of years. And then as from 2021, it really went up because we had the funding necessary to do a good brand awareness, a lot of marketing. So at this point in time, we have more than 33,000 verified users on the app, and we have acquired more than 550 registered taxi. So, and this exercise obviously continues. I think it is important to note that Mauritius, unfortunately, the government has not been able to put together a framework for taxis current in Mauritius. So last year, we were very happy to participate with the government authorities to kind of sit down and work together to put together a framework, which should be out very soon this year. So we were very happy as a startup to be able to give these information and feedbacks and work together with the local authorities to develop a framework. So what's next? We have a lot of exciting features that we want to add to the app. This year, we are celebrating our 5th anniversary as a startup. I must say, when we started in 2017, a lot of people told us that, you know, this is a very challenging territory that you are getting into, because, like I said, the taxi system in Mauritius was very deeply rooted in a culture of archaic system. You know, taxis were very resistant. And we managed to convince them that the app is actually an essential tool to expand their network, to get more clients. So we are going to continue to digitally innovate the mobility sector in Mauritius. And as we've been speaking earlier regarding smart cities, we want to be able to offer more services on the app. Obviously, this will allow us to have other revenue stream. So like you see here, these are new features and services that we are planning to add to the app this year. And that's it about Yugo. So thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Ivani, for your presentation. I'd like to open the floor for anyone who has any question. Please note you only have 7 minutes allocated for this Q&A session, so we can start having in questions for Ivani.
Hello.
Anyone with questions? Okay.
Okay, just to know, in Mauritius, you also have Uber there? Do you have competition with the different apps or in Mauritius or not? Or it's just yours that is working and you don't have Uber or other kind of systems like that?
So exactly. So when we realized that there was a need in the market, we did a lot of research to understand, especially why big players like Uber or Ola and similar have not entered the market. So they did try to enter the market. However, there was a lot of resistance from taxi drivers because they felt that their livelihood were being threatened, because obviously in most parts of the world, Uber's business model is anybody with a car or a driving license can actually drive clients and get money. So the taxi drivers here, they had a strong lobby, and they were very good in convincing the government to actually, not allow Uber to come in or any similar international players. So as a matter of fact, when we were launching Yugo in 2018, we were about to launch the app, and 2 weeks prior, Uber had again made an interest to enter Mauritius, and there was a big protest with people marching, taxi drivers, marching in front of the government house, protesting and saying they do not allow Uber. So then we kind of had to ride the wave and say, okay, you don't want Uber, and here we are, a local startup, 100% Mauritian made, and our app has been adapted so that it is only registered taxis who can use the app and basically get clients through the app. So we were very fortunate that we were able to convince them. So since then, I must say that we are kind of the pioneer. We do have other similar apps that came into the market last year. But they have a slightly different approach. We are 100% digital, so everything goes through the app. You need a taxi, you book through the app, you make your payment through the app. Our competitor, even though they have an app, most of the time they use the hotline, so you need to call, ask for a taxi, and negotiate your fare. Whereas we keep everything on the app, so your fare is transparent. This is what you pay when you are booking your taxi.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Serge, also, I can see Serge has raised his hand up. I think he has a question. So Serge, I'll give the floor to you.
Yeah, thank you. Quick question, actually. Thanks for that. I would like to know, what are your growth opportunities? Where do you see the growth opportunities? I know Mauritius is not a big country, so I'd like to know where next you see yourself in terms of the opportunities. Where you see the opportunities to grow in this business in Mauritius or
yes.
elsewhere?
Yes, it's true. One of the when we were, when we heard Uber was interested in penetrating the market, we did thought to ourselves, Mauritius compared to the other market that they have is very, very small. But one of the interesting thing, Mauritius is about 1.5 million inhabitants. And one of the very interesting thing in Mauritius is during the tourist period, there is actually another 1.5 million tourists coming in. So this number of people double really in Mauritius. So this is a very interesting market for us, and that's why we have created this feature on the app, Places of Interest, because it's a listing of places to see and to do in Mauritius. And with that, we are able to have local partners to put their listing on the app. And this also gives us some advertising revenue to keep the app sustainable. But also it helps the tourists to move around and visit places of interest. In terms of continuously making the app sustainable, it is important for us to we cannot, unfortunately, like you said, because of the number of people here, we have to add other revenue streams. So the advertising stream was one of them, and there is the car rental as well. And we in our plan for this year, we want to add other features which will bring us multiple revenue streams, so that we can be, if you want, a one-stop solution for all transportation needs. So be it to serve the elderly, the people with disability, a pet taxi, for instance, because this is quite a need here in the in Mauritius, and also full day, half day and full day, because we have a lot of business travelers who needs to get around and be chauffeur driven. So we this is one of the plans that we have as well, and a lot of different transportation needs, including, you know, if somebody's moving, they need a moving truck and things like that. So this is where we are going at the moment. Obviously, eventually we might expand in other islands, outer islands, in Rodrigues, most probably, to begin with. But for now, we are concentrating in adding other features to offer more services again on the app.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivani, for your time to present. So I think that's
Thank
it.
you.
If there's anyone else who doesn't have a question, I saw that Rui, you had a question, or maybe. Okay.
I already did it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Ivani, for your presentation.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like now to invite the next startup, which is Ohospital Cloud Limited, led by Daniel Kimani. Daniel, please take the floor. Please take the floor, Daniel.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Kimani. I'm a business developer with 10 years of experience building solutions for Kenya market. This is my second company I'm building. Do you know half of African population cannot be able to access proper healthcare? It is even worse when one is trying to access resources such as specialists in rural areas. In Kenya, we have a population of about 60 million, with about 70% of this population living in rural and urban areas. They have to spend 6 to 12 hours trying to access a health facility, and the ratio of doctor to patient is even higher. Most of these patients do not have insurance, and that is the condition in the current market. This is Peter. Peter is carrying his father to one of our events in Nyeri, where we organize several activities. These activities involve supporting chronic patient access different services. If Peter had a chance to access our solution, next slide. If Peter had a chance to access our solution, one, he could have been able to support his father, be able to access a specialist online, or be able to visit one of our agents in the rural areas. So what we have done so far is we have a digital platform that can be accessed through web, mobile application, and we have agent in the ground. So the mobile application, one can be able to connect to the doctor, be able to have their virtual record kept, they approve the prescription, do payment, and they can also be able even to save for healthcare and insurance. Under the agent are supporting patients in the rural area, be able to access to specialists in urban areas, and also collecting the vitals and inputting them in the solution. So what is the business model? We've been taking a 10% commission since we launched. The company was launched on 2021, where we did several market testing, and we work with Open Capital, Jomo Kenyatta University to come up with a solution, which we've been working on to make sure we get it right. Now we are working on the medkit, which we are in the early stage of testing. The medkit is a package of different healthcare services, which currently we are looking for a partner insurance company, which we can work with. Under the doctor, we have developed a virtual hospital, a way any doctor can be able to set their personal branding online with drag and drop solution to build their own online hospital. Next slide. So how is the market? So for us, we are targeting urban and pre-urban market, with most of the doctors being in urban areas and most of the diseases causing patient admission being about 45% contributed to chronic diseases. We only focus on about 6 fields in healthcare. One is mental health, general consulting, chronic, women reproductive, men reproductive, and any disease caused by climate change. So it is projected by 2030, the African business market will be about 260 billion. And our aim is to work with patients who are spending on an average of $5 on each time they visit the hospital, and they don't have an insurance. So who are our competitors? We have several competitors, either online and offline. What we have done is bring a solution, one which can be able to work even in an offline version. So our solution, especially the agent side, can work without the internet. That means as an agent can be able to take vitals, and then when they access the internet, it is synced to the solution. And also you can be able to connect with the doctor without the internet. Another thing is how we decided to build the product from zero. So after COVID around 2020, we had built a solution that was more of 100% digital healthcare solution to solve healthcare in Africa, but mostly digitally. But we realized that was not the best approach. That is why we went onto the drawing board to be able to build a solution for the African market. So our competitors and what differentiates us is mostly our approach and the agent side. So this is how our traction look like. Currently, we are making about 500 to 1,000 US per month, with over 5,500 users currently, over 110 specialists, and about 8 partnerships. Around the partnership part, we have been able to partner with an Indian company where we are working on medical traveling. So we can be able to send patients to India for treatment through our partnership with the Indian company. In South Africa, we have partnered with Medical Diagnostic for rapid medical test kit. Next slide. So this is our team. Our team is made up of me. I'm a two-time founder and a business developer. My co-founder, she is in healthcare and pharmaceutical for about 6 years. Our CTO is Kitty Mogel. He specializes in solution development. We have our advisors. We have about 4 advisors. We have Ryan Martinez. We have Dr. Hamza. Dr. Hamza is an experienced surgeon with over 20 years in the health business and also focusing in the African and the US market. We have Tony Kiprono, who is our internal doctor. So Hospital has 2 models. We have external doctors and internal doctors. The internal doctors, the model is to one side, if a user take our model, the med kit, they can be able to access some services for free. So we have Lucy Gedeji, who is our PL in communication. The team is made up of about 7 more individuals who are working with us. We have a board which is also supporting us in the growth journey. So what we are asking for is we are currently raising around $100K US, which can either be in debt, equity, or convertible. So the aim of this is to enhance the product we have in the market and also be able to scale in the country. We are in about 10 counties in Kenya, working with our partner like UNDP and other organizations. Next slide. Okay, thank you. That is our presentation. I'll be open to answering any questions.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for your presentation. I'd like to open the floor to anyone who has a question for Daniel. Please note you only have 7 minutes for this session. Anyone who has a question for Daniel, you're free to ask.
Daniel? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Serge, yeah. Yes, a quick question. May have missed it in your presentation, but I wanted to know how do you, what is your competition? How do you stake yourself against the competition? Okay.
Thank you for the question. Our competition, we are competing against several organizations. One is Dr. Smart, Dr. Online, like Zuri Health. So our advantage is our approach. For us, we have about 80% digital and about 20% human touch. So at the human touch, we are working with pharmacy, chemists, community health officers, and nurses who are embedded in the community.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah.
Anyone else with a question for Daniel? The floor is yours. As we wait for questions from the floor. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just commenting that I'm surprised that healthcare doesn't attract much more questions. I think it's very critical.
Okay. As we wait for questions from the angel present, I have a question for you, Daniel. What is Ohospital doing to currently bridge the gap between service provision in the rural areas and service provision in the urban settlements?
Thank you for the question. If you look at the rural areas, if I get sick, the first place I go is I have to either go to a pharmacy, a low-level hospital, or I have to consult maybe a community officer or a nurse who is maybe within the community. If you look at the urban areas, we have several institutions around healthcare and also private institutions. Like in Kenya, for instance, we can look at an area like a county called Kiambu. Kiambu has a population of about 2 million, which are one side depending on the government side, and other depending on the NGOs, another depending on the private. But most of the users have to either go to a pharmacy and buy over-the-counter drug. So for us, what we are trying to do is give these people a chance, one side to work with the way they do, like visiting a pharmacy, but also building a certain ecosystem they can also be able to benefit from specialists. So if you look at an instance is a mental health specialist, most of specialists are in urban area and the cost is too much high. Like it need about 6,000 Kenya shillings for me to be able to talk to a specialist. For a rural person who is earning about $200 or $2 per day, if you tell them to book someone who is going to ask them to pay over 2,000 for consulting to talk to them about mental health, they are not going to be able to do that. But if you tell them you can start with the people who you already know or understand better, that is the pharmacy, chemist, community health officers, and then they are going to try and distribute the package of now the bigger specialist who is in urban area to something you can be able to afford. It gives them a chance now to be able to come and join that community. Another thing is like the doctors. Our app is not just a mobile application. It's more of a virtual hospital. As a doctor, you can be able to invite your own patient who can also be able like to update you on what they're happening using like a simple survey. So let's say like today I'm in a rural area and I move from one area to another, and maybe the environment affects me in a certain way or direction. I need to update my doctor. It's either I do a call or maybe I can use other means. But for us, we are giving you a way which is going to even create a record for you. We have integrated local languages, which like I can be able like to converse with the doctor with Swahili. So it make it easier for the people who are in rural areas to be able to have equal opportunities and have a chance to enjoy quality healthcare. If you look at actually most of the users we are serving is about 70% women.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Anybody else who has a question for Daniel? The floor is yours. We can open the floor for 1 more minute for the last 2 questions for Daniel before we go to the next startup. Okay, I think that's it, Daniel. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'd like now to welcome the next startup, which is Quick Robotics by Siokan Jirik. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. Siokan, kindly take the floor. Please note the same rules apply when you're presenting. It's only 7 minutes for presentation, and then 7 minutes will be open to the angels for questions. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yugo Limited. I'm from Malawi. I hope everyone can hear me.
I can hear me? I hope everyone else does.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
All right. I am a co-founder and chief operational officer for Cubics Robotics. So I want you to think of this. The way the family turn on TV and watch news or switch stove to cook food, we are hoping one day a family will turn on their plastic waste into beautiful usable object. That way, no plastic will find its way to streets or landfill. This is the opening statement for Cubics Robotics. We would like to address the issues of plastic waste, especially here in Malawi. So we want to make the recycling process as smooth as possible and as easy as possible using the digital manufacturing skills. Next slide. All right, so we have this project called 3D Print Your Plastic Waste. Cubic Robotics is on a mission to create a digital circular economy by recycling waste and transforming it into usable resources for digital manufacturing. We are committed to supporting sustainable waste services and valuing those who work hard to clean our environment by providing the decent jobs. Our goal is to promote environmental awareness and sustainability while fostering economic growth and innovation in Africa. Next slide. Next slide, please. All right, so we are leveraging the fourth industrial revolution, technologies like 3D printing, robotics, and artificial intelligence. So we are using this to transform the way we produce and consume goods. So by embracing the circular economy principle, we reduce the waste and promote sustainable consumption while unlocking new business opportunities in digital manufacturing space. So being motivated by the new technologies, we want to solve the issues of plastic waste. So we are building like the smart factories where we are using 3D printing, and all these 3D printers are made locally by Cubics Robotics. And we want the whole manufacturing process to be handled by robotics, and by using of artificial intelligence in knowing the materials of the waste and calculating the amount of waste to be used. We want to leverage this fourth industrial revolution in delivering our solution. Next slide, please. Yeah, so go back to the back slide. All right, the next one. Okay, so this is the team. So the solution, Cubics Robotics circular economy platform. We want to have a platform where people like a person can find a 3D printed object. So at that platform, you can have a designer, a 3D printer, a 3D object. So you can buy an object on an online platform, and you can order a print job at comfort of your home. So with the 3D printers we are building locally, we want to make these 3D printers available at our offices, and also some people can buy these printers so they can have their in their homes, and they can also share. We want to have like the resources should be shared. So maybe like one person buy a printer in a certain community, the other people can also be able to use the same printer to print using someone's printer. So this printer want to be using the plastic waste, unlike with the virgin plastic. So these printers will be using the recycled plastics, and which will be turned into filament, and that filament will be used on these printers. Next slide. Yeah, so the market business model. From my left side, you can see that's a radio made from the plastic waste. That's a eco-friendly. We're calling it eco-friendly education kit. Radio is amazing. It's an open source where children from public schools are how to build these radios from their own domestic plastic waste. We have collaborated with the Ministry of Education. They have a virtual lab called Me Lab. So connecting all the documentation, the tutorials, how they can build reproduce the similar radio. Using that Me Lab, so the students maybe in the very remote area here in Malawi, they are able to learn how the electronics involved in this radio, and also they are able to build the casing from the recycled plastic. So in the same way, we are solving the smart way of saving the environment, or smart way of recycling, and also a smart way of teaching the STEM education to the young people. The middle one is 3D printed drone parts. We want to also promote the prototyping and also local manufacturing. So our 3D printers want to be used to help other startups who want to manufacture locally. So we will be able to support local startups who want to manufacture locally. And the last one is prosthesis. We are partnering with the College of Medicine in Malawi. So we are just prototyping how we can build, like, for example, let's say bionic hand from the waste plastics. So we will be building different medical medical tools, maybe for learning and also for use. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so the progress so far. So Cubics Robotics started in 2020. We started during the pandemic, and we were inspired by COVID-19. During COVID-19, the borders here in Malawi were closed. So as a country, we failed to produce to manufacture simple things like PPEs, the ventilators, all those stuff like that. So we realized as a country, we need to be able to manufacture things locally. So we started by building the first 3D printers and CNC. So we made that one. We used that one to produce the first PPEs. And in 2020, also, we produced like 8,000 pieces of COVID-19 face shoes. So in 2021, we managed to raise $50,000 US. We were fed by Environmental Affairs, that's a government department here in Malawi, and we are also funded by UNDP Malawi. So with that funding, we were able to increase our machinery. So in 2022, we built an Atlantis. Atlantis is an online platform where the people will be selling their 3D printed objects, and also we will be using the same platform to buy the waste plastics from different users. Next slide, please. Yeah, so our partners is the Malawi government, UADP and IKIPA. All these are the partners, and they have helped us with the funding and also the guidance and the education and the mentorship. Next slide, please. Yeah, so that's it. That's about Cubics Robotics. Thank you very much. We are welcome for questions.
Thank you very much, Chisomo, for your presentation. I'd like to open the floor to questions. Please note you have 7 minutes for this session. Anyone who has questions for Chisomo can actually ask Chisomo. The floor is yours.
Let me go for this one. Chisomo, thanks for the presentation. This is a fascinating one. Robotics, I think it's probably a lot to. I guess it's a lot of it that's going to help us in terms of the smart cities. But I have a couple of questions for you. I think the first one is how are you going to, I'm not clear about how you're going to make money. Actually. That's one thing. The second thing is, what is your, I think the products, right? I think that I like the idea, the product, but I'm not sure also in terms of what is your business model, what are you targeting? Are you going to do B2B? Are you going to do B2C, a combination of both? Would be helpful if you can clarify that for us.
All right, thank you very much. We will be making money in 2 streams. We have 2 revenue streams. The first one is STEM education, where we are teaching young people how to recycle the plastic into education radio kits. This is our STEM program. We have been running this program for the past 2 years. So what happens is we are training for right now. We have like a MAFRE training where students so far from the public, many of the from public schools, they are not paying. So we have a company, Temu Education, based in Poland. We have the partnership for 5 years where we'll be training. We'll be having a MAFRE training. So we get paid by conducting these workshops. And also Malawi government through the Ministry of Education, they are funding the education programs. So every time we are having these trainings, we get paid. That's the first. And also these radios we are producing themselves, they are also for sale. So we sell these radios because they are education kit. So a family, a parent can buy them for children so that they can be able to dismantle them and rebuild these radios. While they are rebuilding, they're also learning electronics. They are also learning about sustainability. Another thing is rapid prototyping for startups. That's another revenue stream. Here, when a startup wants to build, let's say, for example, you want to build a drone. I give an example earlier on. You need like a 3D printed parts. So you get them. You call Cubics Robotics, who will be producing these parts for you, and you will be making money using producing the 3D printed objects for startups and other people. And we also be making money by selling the printers. As I said, we are making these 3D printers locally here in Malawi. So these printers they're also put on the market. So people will be able to buy these 3D printers also. Another revenue stream is the online the platform, the Atlantis, where people will be selling their 3D printed designs. We will be getting commissions from all that sales.
Okay, good. Thanks. Thanks a lot. That's very important.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Serge, for that question. Is there anybody else who would like to ask a question? The floor is still open. You still have like 2 minutes. left. If there are no further questions, I'd like to thank you, Chisomo, for your time and for your presentation, and for everyone who asked questions during his session.
You're welcome.
So, for the 3 startups that have pitched for us today, I'd like to cumulatively thank you as well. And we'll be talking to the angels present, and we'll get back to you later. So for the next session, I'd like to introduce Jeffrey, who's going to take us through the session. Jeffrey Akemu, kindly take the floor.
Hi, this is Fadila back again. I'm taking over from Jeffrey. So once again, thank you very much for attending this workshop. And I think with the support of our champion, we'll continue to build a solid network of individuals who are passionate about smart cities ventures on the continent, and who will be able to come together to continue investing in those ventures that are emerging. Just to close this session, thank you, Serge. Thanks to the angel investors that have joined us today. And most importantly, thank to the startup that have presented their solution today. I would like to, of course, invite you all to ACES 2023 that will be happening in South Africa this year from the 30th of November to the 1st of December, and it will happen in Cape Town. I would like to invite you to visit our page to register for this. This is an opportunity for all our angel investors to exchange about upcoming opportunities, but also to learn from each other. And of course, also connect with VC companies that will be presently in Cape Town in November, December. Once again, thank you very much. And we look forward to continue this discussion. Bye-bye.
Thank you.